good morning.
Good morning.
Is this on?
Yes.
Yes. Welcome to Unity of Charlotte. We're so glad you're here with us this morning. My name is Reverend Sally Robbins, and we feel blessed that you can join us. It's great to be back here. I was in Rochester, New York last weekend performing a wedding for two former congregants, and it was so nice to fly back into North Carolina going, I'm home. It's just wonderful. It's just wonderful. It's already feeling like home here. So we're also wanting to welcome any of you who are joining us via camera on Access 21 or YouTube. However you're finding us, we're glad you're here. And for those of you who are saying, well, what is unity? What is this wonderful way of living? It's a positive, practical, progressive approach to Christianity. Many times it's called practical Christianity, because many of these spiritual laws are practical that we can use in our everyday lives. We teach these principles of truth that were taught and exemplified by the master teacher, Jesus. And so you'll hear many things about unity that are correlative to so many other religions out there. Would you agree that there are many paths up the mountain, but the view from the top is the same? Unity of Charlotte, our mission here is to nurture a deep, mature experience of God through the practice of these unity principles. And we believe spiritual community enhances our experience of life, that just by being together, that's making things better. So if you're joining us for the first time today, we're so glad you're with us. If you didn't get a chance to get a welcome packet when you came in the door, all you need to do is find someone. Do you love these name tags that we're wearing? And yes, aren't they beautiful? If you see one that has a blue ribbon, that means that that person is a trained greeter. I mean trained, ready to answer every question that you may have about the mysteries of life. They're here. And where the bathrooms are, yes, even more importantly. So if you have any questions about who we are, if you'd like a welcome packet that is just full of information about us, please feel free to walk back out in the hallway after the service, find a blue ribbon, and we'll take care of you. If you're in need of spiritual support, you can also place a prayer request in our Ministry of Prayer box, which is also located in the foyer out there, or you can go online. Did you know that? Our website actually has a place where you can put your prayer request in. We've also had many wonderful things happening at the church, and if you'd like to keep connected with what we're doing here, I invite you to fill out to get on our email list. You can go on to unityofcharlotte.org, and there's a place where you can add, and you can also like us on Facebook. So, a few of the events that we want to just highlight today. First of all, a huge thank you. Did you notice when you came in today, a huge thank you to the ground crew for beautifying the property yesterday. Let's give them a round of applause. Yay. It's always so nice to see, that people who have that knowledge about just plants and things and landscaping are doing such a great job. And I hear that Friday night's Taizé service was the bomb. Thank you, Kay and Susan, for putting that together. And they were telling me that we're going to actually be doing more of that. Yes. So if you missed it Friday night, we'll be doing that again. Name badges. If you'd like one of the beautiful name badges, we invite you to put your name on a list in the foyer. And upcoming, this is fantastic. If you've ever wanted to work more on your forgiveness, and who doesn't want to work on their forgiveness, right? Reverend Grace Karsich is doing a whole workshop, and she's also going to be our speaker on August 12th. So I invite you to really put that on your calendar to not miss, because forgiveness always opens up so much wonderful things in our lives, doesn't it? So that's going to be a wonderful, wonderful thing. August 12th, don't forget that. And now I'm going to invite you to just relax. We're going to continue our inward journey, and I'm going to do our opening prayer. So if you're comfortable, you can close your eyes. Let's take a deep breath in and let it out. Another cleansing breath in. Let it out. And a third cleansing breath in. Let it out. And a third cleansing breath in. Let it out. And just let yourself breathe. Tune into that place within you that knows that which breathes you. That place that is absolute power, wisdom, peace, plenty. That inner space that resides within us all, that is Spirit, God, Allah, whatever name we choose to give it. That is your point of power. And so from this place, I recognize that each one of us is in our holy space just this moment. Each one of us is here by divine appointment. There are no accidents. If you are sitting in this room, if you're hearing my voice through whatever means of telecommunication, you are in the right place. I know that divine appointment is now, that your time and space with God is now, and every unfolding moment thereupon. And so we just rest in this perfect place, knowing that as we do so, we are unifying with that presence, that we are knowing that we are that presence, that we have every power, every instance, every character, every value, everything that we ascribe to God is us. And so I know that I have all the strength that I will ever need. I have all the wisdom to answer any question that comes my way. I have it all. And so I claim that now for each and every individual in this room, each and every person watching or listening, that you too have that within you. This power and beauty and poise is all yours. So we simply claim it and say yes. Yes to that which is unfolding in our lives, even if it may look like something that we're not quite sure what to do with. We know that there is a divine appointment happening and that everything is there by right of consciousness. And so we simply allow and surrender that Spirit is having its way with us, and we are showing up as Spirit in this world in this moment right now. And so I give great thanks for this recognition that I am that great I am. I am unified with that forevermore. I always have been, always will be. And so I just rest. Rest in the knowledge that Spirit, God, is in charge. I let it be so. And together we say, and so it is.
So will you join me for the last time in July, this affirmation? Today, I declare my spiritual independence. I release all self-imposed limitations. I express myself fully, freely, and powerfully. I know the joy of being my authentic self. Today, I declare my spiritual independence. Thank you. Today's inspirational word comes from Jack Kornfield, wonderful meditation teacher, mystical person. And it's called After the Ecstasy, the Laundry. And this is just a passage from part of that, right? After the ecstasy, the laundry still awaits you. I love this story because it speaks to this idea of the spiritual independence. Several years ago, some friends arranged for the Gyeto Tantric Choir, the Tibetan monks famous for their deep multivocal chanting, to perform at San Quentin Prison. Then the San Quentin Gospel Choir would sing in response. But as the day approached, it became clear to the organizers that there would be a cultural gap to overcome, you think? The members of the San Quentin Gospel Choir were all African Americans, many of them big men who worked out with weights. In their years in prison, they had been born again, touched by the Spirit of Jesus, and their songs were testimonials to their depths of suffering and to the light of the gospel that had been awakened in them. The organizers feared that Tibetan monks would appear to be merely foreigners and heathens to these newly awakened Christians. When the heathen monks arrived, the contrast was even more apparent. Dwarfed by the African Americans were a group of small Asian men wearing maroon skirts. The question was how to bridge the gap. A key sponsor of the event found the solution in an inspired introduction. Almost all of these Tibetan men who have joined us today have spent years in harsh prisons. The Communist Chinese Party not only imprisoned them for expressing their beliefs, but tortured them as well. Somehow they were released or able to escape from prison. And then to find freedom, they walked across the Himalayas, the highest mountains on earth. Some tied rags on their feet because they had no good shoes. But even now, they are in exile. They are forced to live far from their home, apart from their families and community. And they do not know if they will ever be able to return. What has kept them going through all of their struggles has been their songs and their prayers. And this is what they will sing for you today. In an instant, the gospel choir and the Tibetan monks looked at one another with eyes that shared the vulnerable depths of human sorrow. And they found understanding. Each group sang to the other from the heart. And when their music was finished, they came together to hug and embrace like long-lost brothers. The songs these men sang expressed the emotions of their heart, their struggles and capacity to endure. Their hopes and aspirations for freedom and redemption were carried by their voices. Feelings are what connect us to life and to one another. To be able to feel is one of the extraordinary gifts of humanity. To neither suppress our feelings nor to be caught by them, but to understand them. That is the art. So, my friends, I know that each one of us is in our own prison, in our own captivity, in that place where we feel constrained and restricted until we realize our spiritual independence, our spiritual freedom. And as we transcend the labels that we allow to define us, we realize there's one heart, one life common to all. That indeed we all share a common brotherhood and sisterhood of humanity. And so today let our hearts be open to the truth of who we are. Let us receive divine wisdom. Let us set aside the beliefs that have limited us. Let us recognize our spiritual inheritance, our wholeness, our beauty, our love. We are living, moving, and have our very being in this divine presence, as the Bible teaches us, closer than hands and feet, nearer than our breath, is the divine presence, awaiting our recognition of it. We are indeed blessed, and so it is. Amen.
Streets of every village, every city's soaring tower, empty people live in darkness, every minute, every hour. Hear the cry of desperation from a billion broken hearts, with a need so great. Where do we even start? Let it start with me. Open up my eyes, fill my heart with your compassion, free my mind from all distractions, use my hands to set the captive free, move my feet to follow after you. Lord, change the world and let it start with me. Given us the orders, there's a place for everyone. I don't want to miss my mission in the plan you've begun. You have promised to go with me to the edges of it all and change everything that keeps me from your call. Let it start with me. Open up my eyes, fill my heart with your compassion, free my mind from all distraction, use my hands, set the captive free, move my feet to follow after you. Lord, change the world and let it start with me. Take my life, all that I have called my own. Everything I am is yours alone. And let it start with me. Open up my eyes, fill my heart with your compassion, free my mind from all distractions, use my hands to set the captive free, move my feet to follow after you. Lord, change the world and let it start with me. Open my eyes, fill my heart with your compassion, free my mind from all distractions, use my hands to set the captive free, move my feet to follow after you. Lord, change the world and let it start with me. Let it start with me.
Are you guys staying up here, or what are we doing? I mean, you're welcome to. I love you. Well, never mind. I'm just going to leave that one alone. So, today, we are available for an adventure if you're willing. Michael, would you do me a favor and close that door for me? Thank you. Anybody up for an adventure? Yes. Okay. So, it's not that adventurous. Every once in a while, I just like to know. It's nice to know. But every once in a while, I like to do what I call a Stump the Chump Sunday. Stump the Chump, me being this chump. And so the opportunity, I know there's a reason you're here today. There's a question in your heart. There's something you're seeking, or you may be looking for a date. I don't know. There's a lot of reasons. People come to church. I'm very much aware of that. But today, I just wanted to kind of open up to some questions and see where that takes us. Now, I want to set this up properly, though. So take a moment. So my friend, Reverend Sally, who we're so delighted is chosen, or God chose her, or she chose God to be here in Charlotte, will assist us. So we'll take a few questions. We'll see what gets revealed for us and see where that goes. But I want us to take just a moment to center in. And then, so close your eyes for a moment. Take a few deep breaths. Breathing in, releasing the breath. Breathing in, releasing the breath. Notice as you breathe in, notice the gap between the in-breath and the out-breath. Notice the gap. Notice the stillness. Notice the place. And from that place of openness, let us imagine that if we were given the opportunity to speak with a master, with Jesus, Buddha, any of the other enlightened souls, and we got to have one question, what would that question be? Allow your heart to be open. Know that wisdom comes in many ways. You can open your eyes. I'll let you. So, who has a question? Well, maybe they're not as adventurous as they said they were. It can be about unity, it can be about life, it can be about...
I'll get you in a second.
I guess my question would be...
Tell me your name.
My name is Thomas. My name is Thomas.
Great. Thank you, Thomas.
I guess my only question would be knowing what they would know ahead of time. Forgetting about my personal life or anything like that, but when you see all the suffering in the world, if you know ahead of time that things are going to be this bad, if you knew ahead of time that like 6 million Jews would be, or slavery or anything like that, why would you do it anyway?
Why would you come to this earth?
Exactly.
Okay, great. Beautiful question. Thank you. And is it doubting Thomas or just Thomas? Right. Beautiful question. If you're an enlightened, or if you're a spiritual being and you know that you get to come to this dimension and you know that some difficult things are going to happen, why would you do such a thing? So that's such a great question. So here's the thing. Here's what we'd suggest. That we are all spiritual beings. Unity teaches that we are spiritual beings. That there is a part of us that is connected with the divine, not separate from God, but rather the vehicle through which the divine can express itself. And so we live in that spiritual dimension as a part of a unified whole. In that dimension, we're whole, perfect, complete, we're omnipresent, always available. And yet, we don't fully get to experience that until we experience a sense of form. So I believe that we are, as spiritual beings, we say in order to really evolve as a soul, I need to have a vehicle through which I can experience life in ways that I can't experience in this dimension. And so at some level, we incarnate into a physical being, into a physical body, and in that body, we get to experience what we would not experience. I often say when I'm doing a memorial service that, if you imagine that there's a baby in the womb, and we'd say to that baby, know that you are loved, you are guided, you're protected. I mean, being a baby in the womb is a pretty sweet deal. It's warm, it's comfortable, 24-hour room service, it's a good deal. And then the earthquake comes. You're like, wait a minute, what happened? And imagine just taking that one step further. Imagine there was a collective womb in which the babies were hanging out. And they all go, oh my God, did you hear that horrible thing that happened to Sam? He got shaken out. Where is he? But Sam now gets to have an experience of sunlight on the face. Gets to have the experience of physical being. He gets to have the experience of illness. Gets to have the experience of great sex. Gets to have the experience of being in physical form. So the thing that happens for many of us is we forget that in the choice to take on this body, that we remain a spiritual being. Right? That we were still a spiritual being, but through whatever that process is, when we come into form, then we start to identify ourselves as the body. And as we go along, we begin to identify ourselves as other things. Moms and dads and husbands and wives and engineers and architects and all of the things that we begin to think this is who we are. But the truth is, we are spiritual beings. We are having a human experience in its fullness. Experiencing light, experiencing dark, experiencing pain, experiencing sorrow. Why would we want to do that? Well, I think it's for the soul's evolution, right? And so because we forget, because we forget, then we treat each other as if we're not all holy, sacred beings. Just as the story I gave you about African American men and Tibetan men coming together could see only their separation, but when they realized they had a common story, then they could experience love in a way they couldn't experience before. So, why questions I tend to stay away from? I'm like, I don't know. But understanding, and I think the evolution, the awakening that we're feeling that we are part of, is that remembrance that we are spiritual beings and we're at choice. We can either remember who we are and live accordingly, or we can just be stupid, right? The universe loves us so much, it says, let's go. You want to be stupid, right? Sometimes when you're raising parents, you get to that point like, okay, I gave you everything I got. You're going to keep being stupid. Be stupid. You'll pay your own bills. You get yourself out of jail, right? So the calling is always that we are spiritual beings. As Emerson said, we are lying in silent repose. The divine is waiting in silent repose, waiting for a recognition of itself. So our duty, our job, is to remember that even though we have these vehicles, we are not the vehicle. It's like when you get a rental car. You got to give it back. But it lets you go places and see Florida if you want to see Florida, right? So, I hope that's helpful.
I have a question about the relationship between faith and courage.
Between faith and courage.
Faith and courage. I was, when you were taking us in just before opening for questions, some names of great people came to mind. Mahatma Gandhi and Martin Luther King and Mandela and Jesus and Buddha. And my interpretation may be absolutely wrong, and that's why I'm putting it out as a question. It seems to me that their courage to step forward and put their lives on the line came from their deep practice of their faith. Is that true?
Maybe. Maybe true, maybe false, could be seen on the above, right? No. So if I'm understanding the question, they were willing to put their lives on the line because of their deep faith, correct? And I would say, referring back to what I just said, the fundamental question for all of us is, do we see ourselves as a human being in search of a spiritual experience, or do we see ourselves as a spiritual being having a human experience? You see, it's a fundamental question. And when we start to see ourselves as spiritual beings having this human experience, when we remember that who we are is transcendent of the physicality, right? Think about this for a moment. All of us were a baby at one time. Came in at 6 pounds, 8 pounds, 10 pounds, whatever. Over the years, you're no longer 8 pounds, right? A few more, right? And you got taller, and you got wider, and you got all of these things, but there's some part of you that remains the same of who you are. Let's say some bad thing happens. You were to lose an arm or lose a leg through an accident. You're still who you are, right? Didn't change you. So that faith is the faith and the recognition that I am that divine being having this human experience. So for me, where Jesus' teachings became revolutionary were not when I was seeing him in a sacrificial way that somehow died for my sins or any of that theology, but rather was the great example. And so when you listen to the words, this is where Christianity became practical and real for me. Greater works than these you will also do. Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. That I will be struck down, but I will rise up. See, there's an eternal theme. One of my favorite other stories is the hero's journey, Joseph Campbell. That this lifetime experience is calling us to know ourselves, and we're all going to go through trials and tribulations. We're all going to go through challenges. We're going to, at some point, have a supreme ordeal. But out of that supreme ordeal, on the other side comes the gift, right? And that the truth is, so often we get the ministry of prayer requests when people are in the road of trials. Like, take this away. Even Jesus gave us this great example of being in the garden. It's like, can we just talk about this contract we made here for a minute? Can we just take this cup away? Right? Which is that thing, right? When we're like, I know what I was praying for, but I wasn't expecting this. But the surrender to say, I am more than this physical body. I'm given an opportunity, and by identifying, so Martin Luther King was a great example of the power of humanity, the power of brotherly love, the power of being a presence of life and love in the world, working for a greater world. Such as I may not get there with you. You may not get to the promised land. But there is a promised land. There is a possibility. Nelson Mandela spent all those years in prison, but he never allowed his mind to be imprisoned by the circumstances in which he found himself. So the faith is always, I have a faith and a belief in a power greater than myself. The one life that is expressing through me. And when we begin to really understand it, for me, the recognition. So, remember a story of Mary Morrissey and another teacher, and I can't think of who the teacher will come to me. We're sitting, getting ready to go out on a seminar, and the teacher said, "Isn't it amazing when people come to you and they say, 'I just found out I'm going to die. I have this, that, or the other thing.'" And he's like, "You just found this out? You never knew you were going to die before, right? I mean, right? We're all going to die. Sorry to break it to you. But that part of us which is eternal will live on. Goes on to experience the next part of our evolution journey. So that's the faith that you speak of, is that I've come, I'm going to do my work, I'm going to bring forth that which is within me, I'm going to give my gift in the way that it is presented for me, and ultimately the commitment is more to who I am and the message I bring than the circumstances surrounding me. Does that feel cool? Thank you. Jim. Get a little tennis action going here, Sally.
I just wondered, could you talk about the importance of individual liberty and freedom relative to spiritual growth and development?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Would you talk about the importance of having individual liberty and freedom for spiritual growth and individual spiritual growth and development?
Sure. So if I'm understanding the question, the difference between or the having individual choice and spiritual growth. So, you see, it doesn't work if we don't get choice, right? We don't get to have the experience. That's just God playing puppet, right? So, we are created in the image and likeness of the divine, which is to say that, well, see, we've confused this. So we've said, well, then God must look like us. Well, I'm going to suggest you know. What that means is that we are a part of the ocean. We are a drop within the ocean. And all of the qualities of the ocean are available in the drop. So you see a wave crashing, you see this drop come up in the air and return back to the source, right? It still retains its characteristics and quality. So when we are given the opportunity to have earth time, physical body time, it wouldn't work if we were just being controlled by something. Without the element of free will, of choice, we don't really get to have the experience of our divinity. Now, many people, you might know some of them, act as if they're not at choice all the time. They say things like, I have to go to work. I have to do this. I have to do that. I have to be a good Christian. I have to be a good Buddhist. I have to. And it's like, no, you don't. That's the great thing about this dimension. You can be a complete jerk. You pay the consequences of it because that's what we understand. There are universal laws at work. There are universal laws. And so I can make the step off of this stage and say, I don't believe in the power of gravity. And gravity could not care or less. Luckily, it's not a far step, right? Likewise, if it's a cliff, I don't believe in gravity. You're still going to land because the principles are at work. Again, for me, that fundamental shift when I moved from an old way of thinking where I saw God as rewarding some, punishing others, playing favorites, all that sort of thing, to understand that this universal presence is always fulfilling itself. It is always making itself known. The very nature of life is to fulfill itself. We know that if we plant a seed and we nurture the seed will grow into its own kind. Carrots become carrots. Tomato seeds become tomatoes, right? There's a divine intelligence within that. We as human beings have the opportunity to say, forget that that's who we are and act accordingly. But we will, there are always consequences for the choices that we make, right? Not being punished by God, but rather we are punished by our choices and our actions. In other words, there's a thing called karma. What goes around comes around, right? So it becomes wonderful to say, in order for me to fulfill myself, I may want to play at a higher level. I haven't liked the consequences of the choices that I've made up until now. I was talking about how I went through so many relationships because I wanted my partner to make me happy as it is written in the books. Right? Where's this happily ever after piece? They didn't get it, and I didn't get it. I'm about to be happy, and then from that place of wholeness, choosing loving relationships. So we're always a choice. We don't always get to choose everything that happens to us. Sometimes things happen that are way beyond our control. And yet, if we're willing to do the work, we see that everything that is in our lives is an opportunity for greater spiritual growth, for greater awareness, for greater possibility. Okay. So there was a couple. You may have heard of them. Adam and Eve. I love this story. It seems like appropriate to say it. So this is Bible according to Marty, obviously, right? So Adam and Eve are created. Two different versions of how they're created. Doesn't matter. Here they are. They're in the garden. Happy, well-fed, well-supplied, naked, enjoying the garden that we've manifest ourselves in. And in the garden, there are two trees. There is the tree of life, and there is the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And the message, we got confused about apples a long time ago. It's not about apples. The message is, stay away from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. In other words, stay away from duality. Stay away from seeing good and bad, right and wrong, right? All of the judgment that we place on how it should be. Don't eat that, because if you eat that, then all of a sudden you're going to notice you're naked. Now you got to do clothes, so that means you're going to have to get a job. You're going to have to do all of this stuff, right? You're going to suffer the pains of child. I mean, all that goes on to kind of explain what's going to happen, but they do it anyways, because why wouldn't they? Every person that ever had the opportunity, like, don't do that. Okay, I will, right? So, right? So I love this story. Is like, what do we choose? So unity, interesting title, unity is saying, live in the tree of life. See the oneness. We can appreciate polarity, which polarity teaches that there's complementary aspects to everything. Right? Electricity works because there's a positive and negative charge to it. The Tao is the symbol of light and dark within each other and finding the middle way. There's polarity within the one, but not duality, not separation. Right? Because as soon as you get two, you no longer have oneness. Isn't that interesting? So, just for fun, if you want to go check your Bible, it's there. It's there. No apples. Not even sure it was a serpent, but that's a whole other story. Right? So does that make sense? That we are experiencing this life, I believe, because we chose. We're like, this is the e-ticket. There's all these souls out there going, wow, I've heard Earth is an amazing ride. Yeah, you get to suffer pain, you get to experience joy, and you do get to have great sex at least once in your life, right? So, it's all adults. It's okay. We can have this conversation, right? So souls are lining up because this is our unfoldment. And it presents a unique opportunity for us not to get bound by the form. It's like, you go to the counter, you rent the rental car, and somewhere you go, I'm a rental car. Look at me, I'm a Camaro. Oh, no, you're not. You're just driving a vehicle, right? You're still who you are. Be that. Love the vehicle. Take care of the vehicle. Be a good driver. And realize at some point you will give the car back. And you'll move on to your next experience, the next dimension. And if you've learned what your soul came here to learn, then you get to do what's next. If you don't, you still get to do what's next. It's all soul's evolution, right? I don't know all this stuff. I wasn't there. So I'm always kind of like amazed when people tell you what happens on the other side. It's like, really? You go, come back and tell me, right? It's all theory for all of us. We'll figure it out when we get on the other dimension. But in the meantime, what's happening now? What's happening in this garden? What's happening in my garden? What's happening in my heart? What am I bringing to contribute to the evolution of the soul of humanity or taking away from it? It feels like a good place to stop. So, let's take a moment to pray together. So from that place of realization, thank you, Sally. From that place of realization that we are one with the divine, that indeed there is one life, one power, one presence, one being that expresses in, through, and as all creation, we take this moment to remind ourselves of who we are, that we are indeed spiritual beings having human experience, and that in each and every moment we can be a choice. Will we bring forth the highest that is within us? Will we resonate at the level of those great teachers through the ages who have helped us to remember our spiritual essence? Will we call forth greater love, greater peace, greater compassion, greater awareness, greater understanding? You see, the Bible says, I've laid before you a banquet. The gift is freely giving. This is the grace of the divine. And so we learn to be good receivers, grateful for this opportunity, committed to giving back, to elevating the soul's consciousness for all humanity. And it is good. We bless this time, we bless this group, we bless this spiritual community. We bless our brothers and sisters across the planet, for we know that brotherhood and sisterhood of all humanity. We know that the one life expresses equally through all. We envision a world at peace. We bless our brothers and sisters teaching spiritual truth, whatever the faith, whatever the tradition. For we know where more of God is realized, healing occurs. How grateful I am for this time. How grateful I am for this community. How grateful I am to be the presence of spirit in form. And I'm also grateful for a law of consciousness that operates upon what we have spoken here, to bring forth greater good, greater possibility, working always for the highest good of all. And so it's simply with joy and gratitude that we allow it to be so, as together we say, and so it is. Amen.
So
happy day. Oh, happy day. When Jesus washed. When Jesus washed. When Jesus washed. He washed my cares away. Oh, happy day. Oh, happy day. Oh, happy day. When Jesus washed. Oh, when he washed. When Jesus washed. He washed my cares away. Oh, happy day. He taught me how to wash, love, and pray. Oh, happy day. And live rejoicing every day. Oh, happy day. Oh, happy day. Oh, happy day. When Jesus washed. Oh, when he washed. Oh, when he washed. He washed my tears away. Come on, join me. Oh, he washed away. He taught me how to wash, to love and pray. Oh, happy day. And live rejoicing every day. Oh, a happy day. Oh, happy day. Oh, happy day. When Jesus washed. Oh, when he washed. Oh, when he washed. He washed my tears away. Oh, wash those tears away. Wash those tears away. Wash those cares away. Oh, happy day. Oh, happy day. Whoa, happy day. Whoa, happy day. Happy day.